What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I want to talk about breaking habits. Now, we all have different types of habits, some good, some bad. Some we need to completely get rid of, and some we just need to improve upon. But there's multiple tricks that we can do along the way to improve how we approach each of these situations. So for myself, if you're struggling with like screen time, easiest thing to do is move where the app is. Whatever app is absorbing all of your time, relocate it. Break the cycle, make it harder to get to. Put it within a folder, at the back of that folder, in blah, 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 blah. Like, actively put barriers in the way. Change what app's in that location. So instead of going into a social media, you go into Google, or you go into your bank, or you go into the calendar, or your notes, whatever it is. Just rewire it so eventually every time you run that pathway, it's a dead end. So you stop going to it. And the more you start to realize when you come away from those social medias and those things that are absorbing your time, the more time you feel you have, because you're simply aware of it. Now that's simply like one example, which I think we're all guilty of too much screen time out at some point. But it can be applied all throughout life, through diet, through career, through whatever else. Like, if you're stuck in the same career, earning the same money for years, decades, and you can't get out of that cycle, put something in the place to break that cycle. Break the pattern in which you do things. Don't just continue to go through the same motions. Like, I think we all get into that kind of autopilot in a sense, whether it be automatically unlocking your phone and going onto a social media or whatever else, or automatically getting up, going to work and going through the same routine over and over again. It's easy for us to fall in these habits, and not all habits are going to lead to progression. Don't get me wrong, some you can build good habits and you can thrive off them and everything else. And that's what we're aiming for. It's not always going to be that case though, and it's not, you're not going to start there. So it all takes time to build and understanding the good and the bad habits, and how you can nudge yourself and push yourself in each direction that you want to go. So if you do want to get your eating under control, your screen time under control, your time management in general under control, you know the triggers around that, and you know the steps that you need to take in order to get there. Whether you take those steps or not is a completely different thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So it's down to you to actively take a drink, actively change those pathways, change those habits, put little barriers and blocks in the way. If you know that you get out of hand on screen time and everything else, put a limiter on it. Like, I suppose it's kind of sad in some ways, but we do have to be our own disciplinarians in that sense. Like, if you can't tell yourself enough is enough, then you're literally just going to overindulge, and that's where we end up in negativity. I think any overindulgence in life, you're going to end up in pretty bad territory. So understanding like moderation across the board in life, and how to moderate yourself, how to moderate your behaviors, and how to understand why you're doing the things that you do. Like I say, we all have these habits, good and bad. So if you can understand the cause and effect behind them, why you do the good habits, why you do the bad habits, then you can nudge them and manipulate them as you need to better your life. And as always, I think that's what we're all trying to do, is lead a better life. So understanding your habits and little tricks to get you where you need to be, that's going to be make or break for a lot of us. I know sitting back and taking time to understand my own habits and why I do certain things. Like I say, I reduced my screen time simply by moving where the app is. Now, I still open up a random app on my phone or whatever else, but it's not an app that's going to take up hours and hours of my lifetime. It's something that I can go, oh, I don't, the calendar, cool, I can see what day it is, or a calculator, oh, I don't need a calculator, and I'll close it, whatever. But if there's something that is going to hold your attention there, then, especially if you've got other things to be doing with your time, then you're literally stuck in a void, just absorbing your time. So being aware of breaking that cycle and of how to break that cycle. Again, it's one thing to know that you're in a cycle, and I'll give you another example to get it off screen time. Whenever I drive, I like a can of Monster in the cup holder, and it's such a habit now that I've always got a can of Monster on the go. Now I know realistically it's not good for me to be drinking that much energy drink, but I always have that can of Monster, and it feels weird having any other drink. Having any other can of drink feels weird. But I can consciously tell myself you don't need that drink. It's the middle of the day, it's this, that, you don't need an energy drink or whatever else. But sometimes I still fall into that cycle, namely before work. But the more conscious I am of it, the more I can nudge myself and change that, get a different drink instead, get a bottle of water, it's always there. Get whatever. Just change the options that are in front of myself instead of setting myself up to have a can of Monster. And like I say, understanding that why I do that, again, I know that it's something that's not good for me, but I still participate in that habit time and time again. So we're all work in progresses, and I'm working on changing the drink that's in my cup holder. I do definitely have less Monsters these days, but it's working on getting it down to none. But hey, we've all got habits that we're working on, and that's the main thing, is if we're working on them and not just accepting that, cool, this is how I am, this is cool, I'm just going to drink loads of energy drinks all the time and not care of the consequences, or not think there's going to be any consequences or anything else. Like, inevitably I know that what I put in my body is important, so if I'm not putting something beneficial into my body, I'm putting something detrimental into my body. But anyway, I don't want to get onto a tangent onto physical health. But I think that's the main thing, is identifying your habits, identifying what they are, what the triggers are for it, and the justifications behind it. Like I say, like the justification behind my Monster is, oh, it's going to perk me up. But the reality is, it doesn't. If anything, it makes me slump. And it's just the case of the habit, and I like the nice cold drink when I'm driving, blah, 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 blah. But I can break that habit. It's literally just, one, a matter of willpower, and two, a matter of being consistent on the back end. So hopefully that's going to be something I'm going to cut out by the next episode. I've got a few more left in the tank, because I buy multi-packs. But maybe that's something I'm going to take away from this episode, is to finally stop procrastinating on that one. Pull the trigger. I know it's not good for me, and yeah, cut it out. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this episode up there. I know I've kind of knocked around a little bit on this one, but the big kind of sentiment is, understand that you don't have to always go cold turkey. Sometimes you can nudge your bad habits and use that same neural pathway to encourage a good habit, encourage research, encourage reflection, encourage growth. It's just about being conscious of that in the first place. The seed for this episode is going to be, try to identify your triggers for a couple of your habits, good or bad. Like, if you're like, cool, if I've been sitting around the house for too long, it makes me jump up and get out and go for a walk because I start to feel lazy. Cool. That's your trigger. You know that once you feel like you've been sitting around for too long, that you'll get up and you'll move. You know that trigger is that feeling of laziness. Whatever else. If it's when you get bored, you go for a cigarette, then understand that what can you fill that boredom with instead of a cigarette, and rah. But take the time to sit with your habits and understand them. good and bad, because there's reasons for all of it. And hopefully you'll come out the other end understanding yourself better and understanding your habits better. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.